I'm Gerald Green, 80 years old now. Formerly served in the Palestine Police Force. Went straight from school into the Palestine Police Force. I joined it when I was 17 years of age. I enjoyed every minute of being there, plus despite the fact I was twice wounded, once very badly wounded, but I enjoyed every minute of it. Okay. It was a part of English history, serving in an old mandated territory, Palestine, and seeing the birth of a new nation, Israel, because I stayed on with about 150 other volunteers into what was the Haifa police force. When we left, we went into Palestine, never left it. We were in Israel, never entered it, but we left Israel. Okay. And that was in June when we left Israel. We were there after the mandate finished. There were two training schools for Palestine police recruits. We were all trained out there. One was Mount Scopus in Jerusalem, and the other was Jenin. Thank the Lord I was trained in Jenin, because it was a wonderful, beautiful part of the country. We were in the foothills of the mountains, and we were along the end of the plain, the Israeli plain. We could look across and see Nazareth many miles away, and most mornings we could see Mount Hermon in Syria covered with ice, over 12,000 feet high. Used to look down on us. I enrolled because I so badly wanted to be a pilot. It was the end of the war, 1946. The RAF didn't want any more pilots. They were throwing them out the Air Force. Hadn't a hope in hell of being a pilot. So a woman who worked with my father married a Palestine police officer, and he introduced me to the Palestine Police Force. And it so happened that my father had served with Major Raymond Caparata many years previously, I think in the First World War, with Major Raymond Caparata, who became a very, very famous Palestine police officer, Raymond Caparata, highly decorated. We were all enrolled as British constables, the lowest form of life, really, a British constable. We were full-time members, of course, and the Palestine Police Force was somewhere about 4,000 British strong. It had about 2,000 Arabs and 2,000 Jews in it. Some of the Arabs and the Jews were temporary additional constables, part-timers. We had to learn, when we trained at the training school, we were given the option, we had to learn a language. Nearly everybody plumped for Arabic. I knew very little about the country at all. I hadn't a clue about it, really, except everybody said it was a lovely climate, which it was, probably one of the world's best climates. There were no vicious animals there, nothing to sting you or bite you. Very lovely place to be. Palestine was not a British colony. Palestine was a mandated territory. After the First World War, the League of Nations was formed. Not the United Nations, the League of Nations was formed. And Britain was given the job of looking after Palestine. France was given the job of looking after Syria and the Lebanon. And we were guardians of it. But Britain and France had to pour money into it. I mean, Britain introduced the railways there, the roads. It was a wonderful setup, what was done. I mean, up until 1938, Britain did a lot there. Railways, roads, electricity, everything. There was a public works department. Well, we interacted very well, particularly in Jenin, which of course was an Arab stronghold, very famous city, Jenin. We got on very well with them, and we used to go shopping there and all that sort of thing. And the same in Haifa. Haifa was an Arab-Jewish city, very modern, particularly the Kingsway area, built with German architects, beautifully tree-lined boulevards, and that very beautiful place to be. And Dara Carmel was a wonderful shopping centre. That was the Jewish area, Dara Carmel and Mount Carmel. The Arabs lived in the Kingsway area and in the eastern part of Haifa. There was a feeling there which was slowly getting worse. The Jews were the minority. The population of what was then Palestine was about 1.2 million. And out of that, when you think it was the end of the war, Britain didn't know what to do with their troops. They all put them into Palestine, and you had a ratio, I believe, of about 11 of the local population, Arab and Jew, to 1 Brit. So it wasn't a very safe place to be, because there were a lot of Brits about, and if the terrorists wanted to do some damage, they could. It was the Jewish, the Stern Gang and the IZL. In fact, one of the leaders went on to become Prime Minister of Israel. Begin, terrible terrorist. But most of those terrorists were throwouts from their original countries, like Poland and Germany and places like that. They were gangsters, really, that infiltrated into Palestine under the Jewish flag, so to speak, and ran riot with the place. They were targeting mainly the British and the Arabs, but mainly the British. The Jews wanted us out. In 1938 there was an uprising by the Arabs. It was called the War of the Black Triangle. That was Tulkarm, Jenin and Nablus. The Arabs had a rising because they could fear that the Jewish immigration was beginning to take over, getting into position.
How did people react after the King David bombing in July 46? Very,
very bad. Very, very bad. I think it got even worse after King David. I mean, at Ramat Gan, when they tried to, Dov Gruner, great terrorist, he tried to break into Ramat Gan police station. Well, he did break in up to a point, but one of our drill sergeants at Jenin, dear old Dick Wainwright, he'd been in the Black Watch Regiment in the war, and he was a ballistics expert with a gun. He used to take us on the range. Well, at Jenin, they used to put a swimming truck on for us to go to the coast swimming. And he always went on it, because he used to go through Ramat Gan, and he wanted to get up at Ramat Gan to see his friend in the police station there. Jolly good job he got off that truck that day, because he ended up capturing Dov Gruner. And because he captured Dov Gruner, he was never ever allowed to transfer out to Jenin, the Arab training school. Dov Gruner was the first terrorist they hung. I was about to go on take my armoured car, 6 o'clock in the morning, with my 2 colleagues. We had a 3-man crew, wireless operator and a car commander, and me as the driver. We had 4 GMC armoured cars at Haifa. I was about to go to Jerusalem that morning at 6 o'clock. And I walked across the yard to go to my car. I can't remember much more. I woke up in hospital. And one of the Arabs in the compound took me out, picked me up, took me outside to a passing Arab taxi, and the Arab taxi took me to hospital, where Dr. Sami Huri happened to be working. And he, of course, saved my life. And Dr. Sami Huri, as a result of his great work, was brought to, because the Palestine Police Force had no doctors of our own, we had a consultant doctor who happened to be home in England on holiday, and Dr. Thompson, very well known, he happened to be home on holiday, and Sammy operated on me. Now, his qualifications were such that it wouldn't have been recognised in England, but he did a hell of a good job, and because of that, he was brought to England by some medical people he met in the forces, and he qualified actually in Beirut, you see. He was brought here. He qualified here as a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons within 18 months. He went to America and got the equivalent qualification. And then he couldn't get back to Palestine. He's Palestinian. Israel wouldn't let him in. He went to Jordan. And him and his wife were working in the camps, the
refugee camps.
Sorry?
The refugee camps.
In the refugee camps, yes. And one morning King Hussein found him. He said, "You can't be here. So like you, we'll have a hospital in Amman." They set it up, the Palestine Hospital in Amman. And it's still there today. It has about 45 beds. It has about, well, it's expanded a bit now, but it's got a few beds for the poor and needy. And the rest of the beds are for fee-paying people. Haifa, I suppose, 2/3 of Haifa were Arab, and about 1/3 Jews. You see, there was only about 300,000 Jews in the whole of Palestine out of that 1.2 million. Less than 300,000, about 250,000. Well, Haifa was a big city, of course, and there was about 1/3 Jewish there to 2/3 Arab. That was the ratio.
Okay.
But sadly, towards the end, Britain didn't really do the job of policing it properly, looking after the mandate, because we should have carried on right up to the day, the 14th, 15th of May, when Israel was formed, doing our job. But the GOC in Haifa, I can't think of his name now. Anyway, he obviously sided with the Jews because he gave instructions in the last 3 months that we were not to get involved in any activity whatever in Haifa. He just let the Jews drive the Arabs out. I can't think of his name. So it'll come. And he was criticised for it, so much so that somebody out there, it must have been somebody serving, got a message to Ernest Bevin, who was the Foreign Secretary, and said, "Look, this is not right, what is going on in Haifa. The officer command in Haifa is not doing his job." And Bevin immediately ordered General Montgomery, who was the GOC of the British forces, to London to ask what's going on. And Montgomery had to argue with Bevin, and Bevin said, "Well, you don't know what's happening there, you see. I do." And we should never have let the Jews drive the Arabs out of Haifa. I would go so far as to say that the Palestine Police Force was 95% at least very pro-Arab. 95% very pro-Arab with the Palestine Police Force. That's the British section. The Arabs were lovely people, simple people, honest, nice people. Nice people, the Arabs. Lovely to get on with. The Palestine Police commanders were all right, very much so. Superintendent Paddy Meehan, who was in charge of Haifa, he was very angry that the Arabs were being driven out of Haifa. He didn't like it at all. The name of the general in Haifa was Sir Hugh Stockwell.
Hugh Stockwell.
Now, Sir Hugh Stockwell had a lot to answer for. Many people think that Hugh Stockwell was either bribed by the Israelis or genuinely didn't want the troops to be hurt or injured. We shall never know, but there's a big question mark over Sir Hugh Stockwell. He could have if he'd only given the command, nothing would have happened in Haifa. If they'd have been allowed to have done the job to the end, the situation would have been different.
Okay.
It was very sad when we moved out to the trade school built near the airport, about 3 miles out of Haifa. We saw all these poor Arabs, hundreds and hundreds of them, cars with chairs on, all women and children, convoys of people leaving Haifa to go up to Lebanon. Very sad. We could not do a thing now. Largely because it was not a British colony, mandated territory. Britain was only the guardians of the place. See, that was the tragedy. If it had been a colony, it'd been altogether different. And if Montgomery had really listened properly to Ernest Bevin, as he should have done, things might have been different, because Sir Hugh Stockwell was not the right man in charge of Haifa. Really, I suppose it was all a wasted effort, sadly. When you think of what Britain put into it, they built railway engines there, they had railway workshops, they built many things there, made all the electricity, did all the roads and things. And when you think, all the Palestine Police Force had about nearly 700 vehicles all told on their strength. When you think we blew them all up to pieces so the Jews couldn't get them, all the armoured cars we had, the wonderful GMC armoured cars, as safe as anything, we blew them to pieces. It was an experience. We were part of history. That's what it was. We were part of history.